We begin in an alternate future that diverged at the year 1901 when U.S. President William McKinley was not assassinated by Leon Czolgosz at the Pan American Exposition. As a result, Theodore Roosevelt never succeeded him, and large business trusts were never broken up, leading to a hyper-corporate, class-centric society dominated by the power of megacorporations, which by the distant future had begun to colonize space and terraform alien planets with varying results. Earth residents are encouraged to undertake efforts to colonize these systems, among which is Halcyon, a six-planet star system. Traveling to Halcyon requires both the use of advanced spacecraft, with a specialist skip drive, and for the colonists to undergo a 10-year cryosleep in transit. In 2285, two colony ships were dispatched to colonize Halcyon, the Hope and the Groundbreaker. While the Groundbreaker successfully arrived in Halcyon, colonizing the planets Terra 1, later renamed Monarch, and Terra 2, the Hope and its cargo mysteriously disappeared in transit, slipping into myth among the citizens of Halcyon. The Groundbreaker is placed in a permanent orbit near Terra 2, with the original crew's descendants converting it from a colony ship into a small independent citadel. In 2355, the Hope is discovered drifting on the outskirts of the Halcyon system by mad scientist Phineas Wells, who manages to safely revive one of the passengers, called the Stranger. Wells informs the Stranger that the Halcyon colony has fallen on hard times due to the mass incompetence of the various megacorporations, referred to collectively as the Board, that govern every aspect of life in Halcyon. Due to the after effects of prolonged cryosleep, the Stranger has substantially higher mental and physical abilities than the majority of ordinary Halcyon residents. Wells tasks the Stranger with securing the resources needed to revive the remaining Hope colonists, who Wells believes hold the key to Halcyon's salvation. Wells jettisons the Stranger in an escape pod onto Terra 2, where a contact, the smuggler Alex Hawthorne, is waiting. Unfortunately, the Stranger's pod lands on Hawthorne, killing him instantly, due to Hawthorne not realizing he should have stood away from the landing beacon. The Stranger commandeers Hawthorne's ship, the Unreliable, which is piloted by an artificial intelligence named Ada, or Autonomous Digital Astrogator. In search of a power converter for the Unreliable, the Stranger ventures into the nearby frontier town of Edgewater, where the Board-supported cannery town is caught in a cold war with deserters led by Adelaide McDevitt. The Stranger is asked by town mayor Reed Thompson to divert power away from McDevitt's village back to Edgewater, which would force the deserters to return to the town. However, McDevitt instead suggests diverting the power to her clan, shutting down the canneries, and freeing the townsfolk from Board oppression, which is what the Stranger decides to do. The Stranger is joined on this mission by Edgewater's bashful town engineer, Parvati Holcomb, and later officer or place aboard the Unreliable. The Stranger also recruits additional allies to her crew, including wisecracking mercenary Ellie Fenhill, ship's hand Felix Millstone, Edgewater vicar Maximilian DeSoto, alcoholic monster hunter Naoka, and a cleaning robot named Sam. The Stranger learns that Wells is wanted by the Board for acts of alleged terrorism, can decide whether to side with Wells or the Board in their quest to save Halcyon, and chooses to side with Wells. After leaving Terra 2, the Stranger heads to Monarch, a colonized moon orbiting the gas giant Olympus, where an information broker holds the location of a batch of dimethyl sulfoxide, a chemical important to Wells's revival of the Hope's colonists. As landing on Monarch is prohibited after the Board disowned the colony there, the Stranger must first retrieve a passkey from aboard the Groundbreaker, which remains independent from the Board. With the passkey, the Stranger lands in the town of Stellar Bay, discovering that the colony is divided into two violent factions. Monarch Stellar Industries, or MSI, a corporate group led by Sanjar Nandi, who face harsh opposition from the Board for their self-declared ownership of Monarch, and the Iconoclasts, idealistic revolutionaries led by Graham Bryant and Zora Blackwood. After retrieving the intel from the broker, the Stranger witnesses a Board gunship crash nearby. Both the MSI and the Iconoclasts ask the Stranger to retrieve the gunship's weapons, and the Stranger can choose to give the weapons to either side, deciding to give them to MSI so that they can fortify their settlement's defenses. With the broker's intel, Wells directs the Stranger to Halcyon's wealthy capital, Byzantium, where the Minister of Earth, Aloysius Clark, has just signed for a shipment of dimethyl sulfoxide. Tracking Clark down to his townhouse, the Stranger learns that Clark has been placed under house arrest by Board Chairman Charles Rockwell, the true recipient of the chemicals. In Rockwell's private quarters, the Stranger discovers a video in which Rockwell announces the Lifetime Employment Program, which is the Board conspiring to place the majority of the colonists in indefinite cryosleep, ostensibly in order to save humanity, but in actuality to hoard the remaining food supplies for the wealthiest citizens. In order to store these frozen workers, the Hope colonists will be ejected into space, with the Hope turned into a vast cryogenic warehouse. The dimethyl sulfoxide is being used on human test subjects to attempt to recreate Wells's revival formula, in the hope that workers can be repeatedly pulled out of extended periods of suspended animation. The Stranger retrieves the chemicals, has the option of killing the test subjects in the process by extracting all instead of just a portion of the chemicals, and decides to take all of it, as having more will guarantee that the Hope colonists can be revived. Wells suggests using Ada and the Unreliable's power to skip the Hope into the inner Halcyon system, placing it in orbit near his laboratory above Terra 2 so that he can begin the revival process. Sophia Conde, the adjutant for the board, instead proposes that the stranger skip the Hope to Tartarus, a planet which is home to the board's infamous Labyrinth prison complex, so that the board can apprehend Wells and begin killing the colonists. The stranger infiltrates the Hope and learns what occurred during the ill-fated voyage. The Hope's skip drive developed an unforeseen fault, extending the planned 10-year mission to 60 years. As food rations ran out, some of the crew turned to cannibalizing the frozen colonists in order to survive, before staging a mutiny. The captain sealed the Hope's cryochambers and locked the ship on course for Halcyon, leaving everyone aboard to succumb to starvation. The stranger also discovers that she was not the first colonist Wells attempted to revive. He made at least 12 attempts prior, with fatal results for the colonists involved. Wiring Ada into the Hope's control system, the stranger is able to skip the Hope to either Terra 2 or Tartarus, and decides on Terra 2. There, the board apprehends Wells at his base and takes him to the Labyrinth on Tartarus. The stranger and her crew land on Tartarus and fight their way through the prison, learning Wells is being held hostage by a Conde. The stranger reaches Wells, negotiates with a Conde, and forces her to release him peacefully. The stranger is then informed that contact with Earth has been lost, and that a board troopship, en route to the home planet, mysteriously disappeared in transit. The stranger is offered leadership of the Halcyon colonies and is allowed to shape humanity's future however she sees fit. With Halcyon now free of both Earth and the board's influence, the colonies are able to use their newfound freedom to shape their own destiny. The stranger and her crew go their separate ways, and the story of the Unreliable slips into legend.